Welcome to English class. Dear students, I am Sabir Hussain, working as teacher in the Department of School Education, Jammu. Today I have taken a very beautiful poem from your English text Tulip series book 9 prescribed by J.K. Bose. The name of the poem is The Road Not Taken, written by Robert Frost. This is your lesson number 4 from poetry section. The Road Not Taken. Here is the introduction of the poem. Dear students, most of us have been faced with a diversion in an actual road or path and not been sure which path to go down. Similarly, we all have to choose from different paths in life. For example, which job to take, which college or school to go to, and we know the list of choices is endless. For every road we take in life, there is a road we choose not to take. The hobby we didn't pursue, the class we didn't take, the words we didn't say, etc. etc. A question we all face is whether or not to take the regular common path. Is that the best choice? Or should we take the less traveled route? And Robert Frost's The Road Not Taken is about these choices and questions present in every person's life. Before I start the poem, let us have a brief introduction about the poet Robert Frost. Robert Frost had spent his first 40 years of his life without any recognition. Later, he got recognition after he returned from England at the beginning of World War I. Thereafter, he won 4 Pulitzer Prizes during his lifetime. Besides this, he was also a special guest of President John F. Kennedy's inauguration as President of the United States. He became the unofficial poet laureate of the United States. Through the language he used and situations that he portrayed, his poems became very realistic, and that's why they are familiar to the common man even till date. Robert Frost died on January 29th, 1963. Setting of the poem. The poem The Road Not Taken is set in a forest, but it's not lovely, dark, and deep. Instead, these woods are just yellow, and the poet is not in a horse drawn cart, but on foot. It's fall in this poem. The trees are turning colors and the leaves are falling. It's probably quite pretty, with the crisp smell of autumn in the air. There is a nice little road, probably gravel or dirt, running through the woods, which suggests that there is a good amount of traffic running through it. But it's early enough in the morning that the fallen leaves are still fresh on the road, and one road is even grassy. Neither road shows much sign of wear. Overall, this setting would be a pretty nice place to be, with colors, different paths, and fresh air all day. Dear students, here is the poem the road not taken. Remember that it has 4 stanzas and each stanza is of 5 lines. This is stanza 1. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry, I could not travel both, and be one traveller. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Explanation of stanza 1. In this stanza, the poet Robert Frost says that when he was walking down a road, he came across a diversion which led to two roads ahead. Even though he wishes to travel on both the roads, he will have to choose one to move ahead. There is a tone of regret in the poet's voice when he says that he is sorry as he stands there trying to see where the roads go. He can only see up to the first bend as his view is obstructed by the undergrowth. After explanation of stanza 1, dear students, here is the analysis of stanza first. In this stanza, the two roads signify the number of choices we have in life, and when we have to pick one of them, we feel very unsure at times. On the road of life, the poet arrives at a point where he must decide which of the two equally appealing choices is the better one. He examines one choice as best he can, but the future prevents him from seeing where it leads. Now, stanza 2. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had warned them really about the same. Dear students, in this stanza, the poet decides to choose the other road. Why? The second one, which he found similar to the first one, but with little difference. The difference that he found between the roads was that the second road was less traveled. Remember that the second road was less traveled and grassy as compared to the first one, which was worn out and the grass had faded. This got him wondering how many people would have passed through that road. Here we realize that the poet has a risk taking and adventurous instinct for taking an untested path. Analysis. The fact that the poet selects the road that appears at first glance to be less worn and therefore less traveled suggests that he has an independent spirit and does not wish to follow the crowd. Dear students, now stanza 3. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. Explanation. The poet tells us that both the paths, both the roads are equal. He states that it is morning which tells us that the poet is the first to travel to this place on that particular day. He also states that the roads are covered with leaves which haven't been burnt black by footsteps crushing them. This got him wondering how many people would have passed through that road. Here we realize that the poet has a risk taking and adventurous instinct for taking an untested path. Analysis: the fact that the poet selects the road that appears at first glance to be less worn and therefore less traveled suggests that he has an independent spirit and does not wish to follow the crowd. Explanation: the poet tells us that both the paths, both the roads are equal. He states that it is morning, which tells us that the poet is the first to travel to this place on that particular day. He also states that the roads are covered with leaves which haven't been burnt black by footsteps crushing them. And the poet then regrets his decision and consoles himself by saying that he will come back for the first path that he didn't choose on another day. The poet has realized that one road can lead to another and then another until you end up very far from where you started, and because of this, he doesn't think he will ever be able to come back and take that other path even though he wishes he could. Analysis: the poet implies that while making any life decision, we can avoid our risks by thinking that we can always come back and try a different option later. But sometimes our decisions take us to other decisions, and it's impossible for us to retrace our steps and arrive back at the original decision. Stanza 4 of the poem. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverge in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference. Explanation: here in this stanza, the poet seems to have jumped forward in time, although it is not known when, but we know that it's many years later from the time he made that choice, and that the poet will be telling his story with a sigh, which could be happy or sad. Whether right or wrong, the choice will have had a significant impact on his life. Analysis. The poet was not sure about the success of his choice. He thought he might regret about his decision of traveling on the second road, and he might tell about it with a sigh. He again talked about the two roads from which he selected the one which was less traveled by, and the choice made all the difference in his life. Here are some words and phrases with meaning. Diverged. It's past tense of the word diverge, that is, of a road, route, or line to separate from another route and go in a different direction. Wood, an area of land smaller than a forest, which is covered with growing trees. Undergrowth, a dense growth of shrubs and other plants, especially under trees in woodland, just based on or behaving according to what is morally right and fair. Fair means treating people equally without favoritism or discrimination. Claim, a right or little to something. Wear means damage or deterioration sustained from continuous use. Worn, past tense of the word wear, that is, to damage, erode, or destroy by friction or use. Trodden. Trodden is past participle of the word tread, that is, to walk in a specified way. Way is a road, track, or path for traveling along. Sigh, a long, deep, audible exhalation expressing sadness, relief, tiredness, or similar. Ages, a very long time. Hence, from now, used after a period of time. Learning about the literary devices. Rhyming words in stanza first are would, stood, could, both, undergrowth. In stanza 2, fair, where, there, clam, same. Rhyming words in stanza 3 are lay, day, way, black, back. In stanza 4, sigh, I, by, hence, difference. Rhyming scheme. There are 4 stanzas in this poem, as I have told you earlier, each with 5 lines, each with a rhyme scheme of A, B, A, A, B. Irony. The irony of the poem is in the idea that the roads have a multiple significance. Not only are they simply roads to travel on through the forest, but they also take on a secondary meaning of a choice in life. A person can neither choose to take the road that most people take, or he can take the one that is less traveled by. The poet's choice to travel down the road less traveled by is also ironic. Even though both roads are fair and about equally worn, he still chooses the one that is less traveled. He could have decided to take the road that would be easier to walk along, but he didn't. Thinking about the poem. Question number 1 is, where does the traveler find himself? What problem does he had? The answer is, the traveler finds himself standing on a fork in the path. He is in a problem as he must choose one path and is unable to decide which one to choose. Question number 2. What is the difference between the two roads as described by the poet Robert Frost in stanza 2 and 3? The answer is one of the roads was much travelled by, while the other was grassy and wanted wear. Question number 3. Which road does the poet choose? And does he regret his decision? The answer you can write: the poet chooses the road that was rather unused so far and that has made for him all the difference. I think the poet Robert Frost regrets his choice of taking the road that was less travelled by. Question number 4. Find the rhyme scheme of the poem. You have to see the last word of each line of first stanza. Let us see. In first stanza, two roads diverged in a yellow. The last word is wood. And sorry, I could not travel both. Both and be one traveller. Long I stood, A, and looked down one as far as I could, A, to where it bent in the undergrowth, B. The rhyme scheme of each stanza is A, B, A, B. Learning about the literary devices. Metaphor. What is metaphor? Metaphor is the application of a word or phrase to somebody or something that is not meant literally but to make a comparison. Dear students, for example, when we say that somebody is a snake, we don't mean that. We only mean to describe his deceiving character by comparing him to a snake. Or if we compare the freshness of something to a dewdrop, we don't mean that the thing by itself is a dew, but he is as fresh as a dew. The mind is an ocean suggests the vastness of a mind. Question number 6 is the last one of the lesson. The question is, which word does Frost use as a metaphor for the choices we make in life? Answer is, a metaphor is a figure of speech that for rhetorical effect directly refers to one thing by mentioning another. It may provide clarity or identify hidden similarities between two ideas. Metaphors are often compared with other types of figurative language. Question number 6 is the last one of the lesson. The question is, which word does Frost use as a metaphor for the choices we make in life? Answer is, a metaphor is a figure of speech that for rhetorical effect directly refers to one thing by mentioning another. It may provide clarity or identify hidden similarities between two ideas. Metaphors are often compared with other types of figurative language. Or if we compare the freshness of something to a dewdrop, we don't mean that the thing by itself is a dew, but he is as fresh as a dew. The mind is an ocean suggests the vastness of a mind. Learning about the literary devices. Metaphor. What is metaphor? Metaphor is the application of a word or phrase to somebody or something that is not meant literally but to make a comparison. Dear students, for example, when we say that somebody is a snake, we don't mean that. We only mean to describe his deceiving character by comparing him to a snake. Or if we compare the freshness of something to a dewdrop, we don't mean that the thing by itself is a dew, but he is as fresh as a dew. The mind is an ocean suggests the vastness of a mind. Robert Frost uses the word roads as a metaphor for the choices we make in life. At the end of the poem, the same message for each and everyone: stay home, stay safe. Robert Frost uses the word roads as a metaphor for the choices we make in life. At the end of the poem, the same message for each and everyone: stay home, stay safe.